Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants Hangout. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I will be your host for today. I'm really excited for today's virtual field trip. It is our first trip of the year to the Ripley's Aquarium of Canada in Toronto, Ontario. We do all kinds of events with them throughout the year, showcasing some of the amazing marine species they have on exhibit, and also hanging out with some of the awesome aquarists on staff. So today I'm really excited. We're starting off with the zebra sharks. In a minute, we're going to meet David Fraser. He'll be down in the water with the sharks, and we'll also meet Danielle Eisner. She'll be hosting us today. We're going to get to see the zebra sharks, learn a little bit about them, and see how they train them for some different medical procedures. So Danielle, it is so great to be starting things off this year with the aquarium.
Oh, yeah, it's so great for you to have us with you. All right, Dave, you want to get in the water? Perfect. So welcome to all the classrooms. My name is Danielle. I'm one of the educators here at the aquarium, and this is Dave. Dave, can you give us a wave? Yeah, Dave is one of the aquarists, and he looks after these beautiful animals. So this is called our reef shark habitat, and there are lots of different species of sharks in here. So this one over here hanging out at the bottom is called a wobbegong, and it's one of two different species of wobbegongs we have. But today we are focusing more on the zebra sharks, and you just saw one swim past. They are the yellow sharks that are quite a bit larger than all the rest of them that we have in here. But other than those two, we also have some black tip reef sharks, white tip reef sharks, a lot of white spotted bamboo sharks, and one epaulet shark. And the sharks, they definitely know it is feeding time. Dave's in the water, and he does hand feed our zebra sharks. And they will come right around him. So the zebra sharks, although they are much larger than all the rest, they're not out competing for food or anything. They actually usually eat shelled animals or smaller fish in the wild because of the size and shape of their mouth. So their mouth is more like a stingray jaw, so it is actually meant for crushing hard things. They do have pointy teeth, but they're just oriented in a different direction. So Dave here, as you can see, he's got his bare hands out. And what he's doing is he's getting the sharks a little bit more comfortable with him. And he's been doing this feeding procedure with our sharks for quite a while, so they are getting pretty used to him. However, he still wants to make sure that they're comfortable with him always. So what he's doing right now is he eventually, hopefully, will get a chance to flip the sharks over. And in doing so, that means that we can do medical procedures on them very easily in a calm state. So usually that's fairly simple stuff, like blood draws, seeing what their condition's like to make sure they're healthy. And using food as a reward for doing the behavior correctly is just like if you were to get money for an allowance for making your bed. So it's just a reward, and then they learn to keep doing this positive behavior because that makes them happy. And we do have some white spotted bamboo sharks that came to say hi, and as you can see, they're really, really small compared to our other sharks in here. The white spotted bamboo sharks are the ones that you can touch at our aquarium. And those little guys are actually very closely related to the zebra sharks. Although they are very different sizes, they both live in reefs, and they like to hide in coral and wait for the prey to come out so that they can jump out at them. So today, Dave is feeding our sharks a wide variety of different food that they would normally eat in the wild. So in his hand right now, he has some capelin, which is a tiny, tiny fish. Kind of like a sardine. He's showing, there we go. Capelin, perfect. Not everybody likes the capelin, but these sharks like it. And then we also have a little bit of bonito, which is kind of like a tuna. We have some mahi-mahi, which is also called dolphin fish. And then we will probably get to see them being fed squid, which we have quite a bit of as well for them. We want to give them a wide variety of food, just like you eat a wide variety of food at home, so you have all of the vitamins and nutrients you need. But we can also vitamin load our food if we need to by putting a little bit of extra vitamins in the food when they eat it, like when you hide vitamins for your dog or your other pets that you might have. And all of our food is actually restaurant quality, so you could actually cook and eat all the food that we have. So our animals get the very best treatment possible. Now, if you're wondering why these sharks are called zebra sharks, as they do not have stripes, that is because when they are young sharks, they have stripes. And our sharks are not old, but they're no longer juveniles, so they've lost their stripy pattern, and they just have spots. And in North America, they're called zebra sharks. However, in Australia, they are known as leopard sharks, which is a little bit more of an apt name. And these animals don't migrate quite that much compared to some of the other sharks that we have at our aquarium. And so these ones stay really still and stay in one area. And the populations, like most other sharks, are decreasing in the world, with the exception of one area. So the area around Australia is actually super protected when it comes to zebra sharks, and their population is thriving and doing well because they're so protected. But areas outside of that Australia range are not doing so well because of shark finning or other environmental stressors that would be making the shark's habitat a little bit worse for wear. So their coral habitat, which they used to hide in, might not be there anymore, or the prey that they like to eat might not really be there as much either, which is very sad for these beautiful animals, which are just misunderstood. A lot of people might think the sharks are scary because they have really, really big teeth. On the most part, and they are excellent predators, really good at swimming. They can actually sense their prey without even being able to see it because they have a really excellent sense of smell and a really excellent sense of electroreception. So that means they can actually sense prey without being able to see it, so they can sense the electrical impulses in the water. So Dave has a pulse, he's alive, and they can sense where he is just because he has a pulse. So that's what they're going toward. And although those things make them a really good predator, as you can see, they are fairly docile and they don't like being disturbed in their natural habitat. Here, they're really used to us, so we do feed them. We don't hand feed all of our sharks, but these ones are hand fed. And then the ones in the wild are just really misunderstood, beautiful animals. And I mean, it's just to sell the stories. All those scary stories have sharks having as the bad characters. It just makes the story a little bit more intriguing for some people. They're just excellent predators. And all of the stories of them being horrible killing machines are unfounded. It's actually more likely for you to have a big accident if you are on your cell phone texting and walking or taking a selfie than if you happen to be in an encounter with a shark. So it's just incredibly rare, and it's really unfounded. And all of these sharks, they live around reefs, and we just saw one of our black tips swim really fast. And then they usually eat shellfish, so they're pretty nice anyway. So zebra sharks, they are pretty big as far as sharks go. They're not the biggest by any means, but they are on the larger end of a shark. And one of the odd things about that is that they are egg-laying sharks. So most of the larger sharks give birth to live babies because then they're bigger and able to survive in their habitat. They usually start out at about a meter. But these sharks lay eggs. And the eggs are probably just about the size of my hand big, so they're really not that large. And then the babies are really small, smaller than these little sharks you see. Oh, we got one to flip over, yay! So now you can see what they look like when they're eating upside down, and this is a good positive reinforcement for the animals so that we can do some medical procedures and give them checkups, and so that they can be very calm when we do so. And right now, Dave is feeding them, feeding them squid. Make sure that they're getting a good meal and happy interaction. So as I was saying, the eggs, when they're laid, the baby, when they are born from those eggs, are actually smaller than the little sharks you see roaming around. So the small size helps them blend in, but that also means they got a lot of growing to do in order to get to the large adult size, which is what we have here. And other than the sharks that you see in this habitat, we have three other species in our large shark habitat, and then two others around the aquarium. So we have Santoku Sharks, which are a big take-home shark that everybody loves to see because they got big teeth. They look a lot like the typical shark, where they're gray and large. And then we also have nurse sharks, sandbar sharks, bonnet heads, and really, really tiny baby chain dogfish sharks, which I think are the cutest sharks so far. They're our only cold water species. We also have our baby white-spotted bamboo sharks on display right now, so that's why they're no longer here. If you've seen this hang out before. They're usually right where Dave is, but they're now on display, so they're not going to be back here anymore. But they were born in our aquarium. So there are some success stories of having sharks reproduce in captivity, and one of them being the white-spotted bamboo shark. Zebra sharks are pretty good at reproducing as well, but we only have ladies, so it's very unlikely for us to have a viable offspring from them. But I say unlikely because some species of sharks can actually reproduce without a male partner. So a zebra shark is one of those sharks, and here at our aquarium they have laid eggs before, usually not with anything other than a yolk inside, but we do look to make sure that there is no baby, and if there is, that would be really cool to see one that was born without a male partner, because that's a really unique thing that these sharks can do. And I know all of you are wondering what you can do in your life to help out these animals, and one of the easiest things you can do is to share what you know. If you know good things about sharks, spread the word. Tell people that you don't think that they're scary. The easiest way to help them is to eat sustainably, which means choosing food resources that the population doesn't decrease over time, and we're not wrecking the environment when we go fishing for them, and we're not taking out too many. So we don't want to do that. And then the other thing is, if you have the money to donate to these things, then you definitely can. And if in the future you want to go into research or do what Dave is doing, it does take a lot of experience and a lot of schooling, but it is well worth the reward. I mean, look at how much fun Dave is having feeding these sharks up close. So it is a very incredible thing that you can do. And I know that most of you don't litter, and I'm sure during Halloween you'll think about that as well, because there's candy wrappers that you might throw on the ground, but we're not going to do that. But all of us can work together to help make our world a better place. And we got one more flip. I believe this is the same one that was flipped over before. All right, Dave, Joe, if you wanted to get to questions.
All right, absolutely. Danielle, thank you so much. That was a great little lesson for us. And I know we've got a big group of classrooms to get to today, so let's get started. Let's start off. Let's see. Let's go to Mrs. DeMayo's class. They are joining us from Connecticut. They're a grade 2 class. Let me turn their microphone on. How are we doing, grade 2s? I think they're there. Mrs. DeMayo's group. Can you guys hear me? Oh, there they are.
How fast do they swim? How fast do they swim?
Yep, I got it. That was great. How fast do they swim? So all sharks have different speeds. This type of shark that we're looking at today, the zebra shark, are ambush predators, which means they swim really fast for short periods of time, whereas most other sharks are pursuant predators. So that means that they swim a long period of time, and they will pursue a prey until they catch it. These guys are really lazy. And most sharks can get up to 25 to 30 kilometers an hour, which is something in miles. Which I'm not very good at the conversion, but these sharks, they don't swim for a long period of time quickly. They can swim quickly, but the fastest shark in the world is the mako shark. So the short-fin mako, and we don't have any of those here. They're highly migratory, so they don't like aquariums so much, but the zebra sharks, they probably won't go faster than 15 to 20 kilometers an hour.
All right, great question to get us started. Let's go to Mr. Laveau's group. They're joining us in North Palm Beach, Florida, some grade 8 students. Let me turn their microphone on. How are we doing, Florida?
We're doing well. How are you, Jeff?
Good. Who's got a question?
What species of sharks don't survive in captivity?
I didn't quite catch that.
What species of sharks do not survive well in captivity?
So there are many species of sharks that may not survive well in captivity, but it truly depends on the type of habitat that you have available for them. So you can see the entirety of this habitat. I'll just pan over it. So this is not the largest of habitats that we have at the aquarium. It is quite deep, so it does go down there next to Dave. But these animals don't require a large open space because they're reef-dwelling animals. They usually stay in one spot or around the same spot for the majority of their lives. so they don't need a lot of space. But some of the larger sharks, like whale sharks and great whites and other sharks that swim really quickly, or all of their lives, like great hammerheads, they need a different type of habitat in order to survive in a captive environment. So our aquarium isn't really set up to deal with those much larger sharks, because our largest shark is the sand tiger shark. And those animals, although they are migratory, they're pretty lazy animals and they like the habitat that we've provided them. However, other aquariums, they do have whale sharks and great hammerheads on display, and they have the habitat and space to deal with that. We're in a big city, and being in a big city means we don't actually have too much space available to us for our animals. And there have been some reports of great white sharks being in captivity, but it is pretty hard to keep them, as they do need a lot of space. They're highly migratory, and on top of that, they eat things that are hard for us to provide to the animals. So getting a mammal that eats other mammals for our or other animals for us to feed to these a great white shark would be very difficult and not so sustainable, because humans don't normally eat mammals that eat other animals. So that would be harder. For us to get fish for these animals is quite a bit easier, because humans do normally get fish. So there are only a couple of aquariums that have ever had great white sharks, and they actually had to put them into a great white shark habitat space in the wild. They just made a net, and then so they got used to the smaller space, and then they could bring them into captivity, and they really didn't survive for that long, and then they were re-released. So if that were to happen, they'd have to change a whole bunch of the regulations and learn much more about the animal. But for these sharks, they do quite well in captivity because of their smaller size and the type of habitat that they prefer.
All right, let's go to our next group. We're going to go to Thompson, Manitoba this time, to Mrs. Oster's group. And Mrs. Oster, your microphone's just off my screen. Do you mind unmuting it for me? And then you guys can go ahead and ask your question. It's a grade 4 class there in Manitoba.
How big are the teeth?
How big are the teeth? That's a great question. So the zebra sharks have super tiny teeth. And by super tiny is, if you look at your pinky nail, it's smaller than your pinky nail. And the biggest teeth that we have at the aquarium from our animals are from the sand tiger sharks, and their teeth are probably about 1 inch long, on the longest ones that we've ever found. And that's mainly because of what they eat. So a shellfish eating shark will have smaller teeth because they're meant for crushing instead. So instead of being pointed together like a typical shark's teeth, or for your front teeth where they're pointed towards each other to cut, they're actually pointed inwards so that they can crush their food. And that's what they like to eat. And sharks do lose their teeth all the time, and that does happen in this habitat as well. But shark teeth in this habitat are very hard to find, as the sharks have smaller teeth. So our rocks and the shark's teeth look very similar to each other.
All right, great question. Let's go to Mrs. Nordberg's group. They're joining us in Rainy River, Ontario, grade 4-5s. Let me turn their microphone on. How are we doing, 4-5s?
Could you repeat the question?
How do you get the sharks into the aquarium?
How do we get the sharks into the aquarium? An excellent question. So we have a large vehicle that is meant to transport large animals, and it has the front like a big truck and the back is a big trailer, and it has 4 wells in it. One's for water cycling, and the other 3 are for where the animals are kept. And then for animals that continuously swim their entire lives, we can have the water pumping over their bodies all the time so that they can continue to breathe, as the swimming motion does make it able for them to breathe. And then once they get here, we have special bins with wheels on them we put water into, and then we'll put them into the bin. And then we have a crane that we can help support the weight of the animal to push them to wherever they have to go. So our habitat here is actually pretty close to where the crane drops off. And these animals, a good chunk of them can hold their breath, as they are spiracled animals. They have little holes near their eyes that help them breathe. But then the rest of our animals that are going into the habitat, they're right directly under where the crane drops off, so we can put them right into their habitat. And we are always constantly monitoring how the animal is doing when they're being transported, as we don't want anything bad to happen to them. We want to make sure they are completely healthy. The way computers are now, we can actually monitor how the water is pumping, how the animal's doing, anything like that, to make sure everything is great for them. And if anything is not great, then we can correct it.
All right, let's jump to Mrs. Struck's class. They're joining us in Waterloo, Ontario, grade 4-5 students. Mrs. Struck, I'll just need you to help me out today. If you don't mind coming up and unmuting your microphone, you're just off my screen today.
Okay, you guys should be on.
Does
it work?
Go a little bit louder.
A little bit louder.
How
Down here.
many sharks do you have in the aquarium?
How many sharks do we have in the aquarium? Well, that's actually a trick question because we have an incountable number. Our white spotted bamboo sharks, these little guys here, they have babies all the time. So it's hard for us to count how many we have. But I can tell you how many types of sharks we have. We have 13 different types of sharks at the aquarium. And of those sharks, 12 of them are on display for you to come and see. Although you might not be able to spot all of them in their habitats, there are 12 out that you can see. And the majority of those sharks are inside this habitat here. And if you think that's a lot of sharks, it is for an aquarium, but there's over 400 shark species. So we don't have that many in general.
All right, we're going to go to Mrs. Hodgson's class, grade 7 and 8, joining us in Niagara Falls, Ontario. Let me turn their microphone on. How are we doing, grade 7, 8?
Good.
What's the normal temperature of the shark's water?
Oh, could you repeat the question?
What's the temperature of the shark's water?
Oh, what's the temperature of the shark's water? You're going to have to ask Dave that question. Hey, Dave, what's the temperature of the water?
This one is about 75 degrees.
Oh, it's about 75 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm really bad at the conversions between us two. 23 degrees Celsius. Thanks, Dave. So this is warmer tropical water to mimic their natural habitat, which is the Indo-Pacific Ocean, close to Australian waters, which is where all of these sharks are naturally found. So Dave was very comfortable in the temperature of this habitat.
All right, we're going to go to Mrs. Hart's class. They're joining us in Jersey City, New Jersey. Looks like there's a mixture of classrooms joining us. Let me turn their microphone on. There it is. How's it going, boys and girls?
Good.
All right, who's got a question?
Do they grow like other sharks?
Can you go one more time?
Do they grow like other sharks?
Does that say, do they grow like other sharks?
Yes, that was
Okay.
grow like other sharks.
So all of the sharks in here are full grown, so they're not going to get any larger. And if you're thinking about other fish growing to the size of their habitats, that's not what sharks do. Sharks grow to the size of what their genetics dictate they should. So all of you have parents. Your parents are a certain height, and those height genes, they passed on to you, and that's why you are going to get to your height. So for me, there's no way I'm going to get any taller because I'm already an adult. Same with Dave. So we're already at our maximum height, and that's because of what our parents gave us in their genes. Same with these sharks. Different species of sharks are different sizes, and if you think the white spotted bamboo sharks are babies, they're actually full-grown adults and already have had babies of their own. So all the sharks have different sizes just because of their habitat space that they live in and the sort of food that they eat and where they fit into their food web.
All right, let's jump to our final live class. Mrs. Forsyth group, grade 9s, joining us in Bracebridge, Ontario. Let me turn their microphone on. How are we doing, grade 9s? Can you try and get a little closer? We missed that.
Have you guys ever seen
Let me turn the volume down on the aquarium side. Can you go one more time?
Have they ever been bit by one of the sharks?
There we go.
So have we ever been bit by one of those sharks? Well, the answer is, in short, if you feed them by hand, there's a good chance you're going to get bit. So Dave has, yes, been bit before. Hey, Dave, can you show us your hands? Look at that. He's got all his fingers. So in general, if you feed an animal by hand, just like if you're feeding a dog or a cat, they do have a tendency to think that your fingers are food. No, they're not going to do anything bad to you. For our sharks that do have sharp enough teeth to do anything like that, we do feed them with a pole instead. So at one point you saw Dave feeding the black-tip reef sharks with a pole, and that's because they have sharper teeth, so he doesn't want to put his hand in their mouth. That wouldn't be so good for his hands. So we're taking our own safety precautions. But in general, these sharks are not going to go after you if you're in the water. These are a swim away or a continue hiding type of animal. So they would rather stay away from you because there's no point in picking a fight that they may not win. And they usually only bite things that they're going to try to eat. And people don't look like food to sharks. We swim really funny. When we're diving, we look a lot more like aliens than sharks because we don't even look like an animal. We're all decked out with equipment. But these animals, they don't mean to bite us if they do happen to get our finger in their mouth when we are feeding them. However, they probably won't even draw blood. It's just like one of those, ouch, and then you're all done. Because our stingrays that are hand-fed every single day, they bite the divers every single day because they accidentally mistake a finger for food, and that's just because they are hand-feeding them. We will always take precautions to make sure that we ourselves are not injured when we are doing our jobs and that the animals are well taken care of at our aquarium.
Perfect. Well, Danielle and Dave, thank you so much for a great hangout. It's always lots of fun to see the zebra sharks. I'm glad some of them turned over for us today. That was pretty cool. For the classrooms who are tuning in today or who might be tuning in on YouTube later, we'll be visiting the aquarium again on the 18th, a couple days from now at 11:15 a.m. Eastern, and we're going to be feeding the spotted eagle rays, so that's going to be really cool. Again, Danielle and David, thank you so much. That was a ton of fun.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for having us. We had a wonderful time. Same with the sharks.
Awesome. And boys and girls, thank you so much for your great questions. And actually, I'm just trying to remember the beginning of the hangout, did we hear the names of the zebra sharks? Do they have names?
I actually never mentioned them. They have, they're both ladies, and their names are Biggie and Drew.
All right, Biggie and Drew. Perfect. Well, classrooms, I'm going to turn your microphones on one more time. We need to be nice and loud. Goodbye and thank you so that Dave and Danielle and even the sharks maybe can hear you. So here we go. Microphones coming on.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Good job, everyone. Thanks so much. Hopefully we'll see you later in the week with the eagle race. For now, we're signing off.
Excellent. Bye.